Hello and welcome to the MS for Mama podcast. I'm your host, Abby Halberstadt, happy wife, mama to 10, Bible-believing Christian, and I have a wonderful guest for you today. She is an in real life friend who lives in the same town that I do, and I've been wanting to have her on for a while to discuss all things holistic nutrition, hormones, perimenopause, mental health. This is all the stuff that she interacts with. And then she went and wrote a great book called Live Beyond Your Label that we are going to chat about today, as well as just dive into a little bit of all of those things. My friend Erin Kerry is coming up, but first I want to highlight our podcast sponsor, Voteberg Music Academy. VMA is a unique and engaging way to learn how to play instruments online. Whether you are young, old, advanced, brand new to music, just wanting to learn a different instrument, or wanting to have your kids start learning in an affordable way where you can share memberships between siblings, Voteberg Music Academy is a great option. You can use the code MSForMama20 for 20% off each month that you're enrolled, and you can also take advantage of their fall competition where they are giving away thousands of prizes to Voteberg Music Academy participants who submit videos. You can learn more about that at votebergmusicacademy.com, and I'll have that information in my show notes. But just know that if you are looking to learn piano, guitar, ukulele, mandolin, or fiddle, Voteberg Music Academy is a fun and engaging place to start. Okay, Erin, it is so great that you are here today, and I love that your publicist reached out to me to book you on my show when we live in the same town.
Totally. Yeah, you were on her list of podcasts, and I'm like, oh, well, I mean, I know
I could just text her. Like, I could just ask. I'll probably see her at the grocery store.
Right, totally.
But I had already been wanting to have you on because I had this whole topic of holistic wellness and nutrition and what that looks like. And then I hadn't done it yet because I was on hiatus, actually. I was on break, and I was on is that the right word? Sabbatical, maybe? Maybe sabbatical is the right word. And then she was like, oh, her book's out, which I knew you were coming out with a book. And I was like, perfect. This is just perfect. Let's do it. So I know you. You live in my town, but they don't know you maybe. So tell us about yourself, Erin. Who are you?
Yeah. I'm Erin Kerry, and I am an integrative health coach. That's what I normally go by, functional nutritionist. I got my training from the Institute for Integrative Nutrition and the School of Applied Functional Medicine. My first career was as a teacher out of my desire to help support kids with their mental health, and then come to find out adults have mental health struggles as well.
Shocking.
Right? I know it's something that most people are going to struggle with at some point. Doesn't mean it's diagnosable, but we all have ups and downs with our energy, with our mood, with our, autoimmune disease is on the rise. There's all sorts of different things that people are struggling with. And my background, my backstory is that I was diagnosed with PTSD, depression, bipolar disorder by the age of 18. Those are three really heavy labels to get as a teenager. And those limited my own self-belief and what I could do and what I thought I was capable of, and carrying around those labels and trying to figure out, well, I guess I'm always broken. What am I going to do? It changed how I viewed myself and my purpose in the world. And so coming from that standpoint, seeing students struggle, seeing adults struggle, I really wanted to offer people something else, which goes into the whole holistic piece of things, that nutrition plays a role in how our brain works. Movement plays a role. Our spiritual, oh my gosh, I consider our spiritual relationship, our relationship with God, to be primary nutrition. Before anything else, there's primary nutrition, there's secondary nutrition, right? Secondary nutrition all falls from that. And so being able to support the body on a holistic level, instead of just saying, oh, here's what you struggle with, you're going to suffer, I guess take your meds and sleep more, which is what I was given. I want to give people something else to really do the digging, to go, yeah, but what else can we do to support a healthier, holistic living environment from the day to day, where you're not just weighed down by, I guess I'm always going to struggle, that kind of thing. That's a short form.
Well, good job. I never managed to boil it down to anything that short when people ask about my stuff.
It's hard.
So
yeah.
The book is called Live Beyond Your Label. I love this because I feel like this is about as countercultural as it gets with what we're being told, especially on social media, which is almost like I was just telling you before we started that I often get a question in my DMs from moms that's kind of this, it's like a little, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like they're on this little search. They need to know something before they can be in my space. Do you have any neurodivergent kids is what they
Oh,
ask me.
right.
And so it's kind of like, if you don't, I'll keep moving, looking for someone that I can relate to a little better that has similar labels.
Uh-huh.
And I do understand that. I mean, I really do. If I were going to get homeschool advice, I wouldn't go to someone who is a private school mom, because she wouldn't have the lived experience to be able to speak into
Absolutely.
the questions that I have. So I do understand that. But also, like you were saying, true wellness and wholeness comes from God first.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
no, we're not saying take 2 Bible verses and be well in the morning,
Right.
but we are saying God's word is foundational and transformational, right? We agree on that.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have a society where labels and diagnoses are skyrocketing. I remember probably 10 years ago, Chris Legg, who is a local pastor, saying, you don't have to raise your hand, but the statistics show that 40% of the people in this room are on some sort of mental health medicine. It wasn't just a prescription. It
Right.
was some sort of mood altering or mental health
Mm-hmm.
support prescription. And I genuinely was like, wait, what?
Mm-hmm.
40%?
Yep.
Really? Is this a good number? Do you find this?
Oh, well, and I will say with that, a lot of those are given without a diagnosis, and they're given by somebody who is not necessarily a psychiatrist, right? It could be given by anybody just based on any symptom any given day. And that's where things get really tricky, right? So the DSM, which is where we get all of our mental health diagnoses, it's based on a set list of criteria, but that criteria is experiential. It's not based on lab work. It's not based on, go get your blood drawn and here are the markers for depression. Here are I mean, we can see low vitamin D. We can see if somebody's not absorbing B vitamins. We can see things like that. And that's going to impact how you feel. It's going to impact a manifestation of a mental illness. But we don't have blood work for bipolar disorder. We don't have it for depression. We definitely don't have it for PTSD. It shows up in our experiences. And so depending on the day, you can be given a different label. And what I see is that you can go to 3 different psychiatrists and be given 3 different diagnoses depending on how much time they spend with you. And so that's where it gets controversial. That's where it gets really tricky. And then all of a sudden we're given this label that's going to affect us for the rest of our lives. Now, I will say, to counter that, for some people, it's helpful. It helps them make sense of their symptoms. And at first I felt that way. I was like, oh, it's not just in my head. There's something really physiologically wrong with me. And that can be helpful, right? Like sometimes a diagnosis is the thing that causes us to change. However, in my case, I wasn't given a whole lot of options to support my symptoms other than medication and sleep. And so I felt stuck. I felt like this is how it's always going to be. I'm never going to be able to trust my brain. And I got real angry at God. It ended up resulting in some pretty self-destructive behavior. And I did get pregnant the end of my senior year of college. And I was a single mom for 4 years. And that was another label, because some of our labels are self-assigned, right? Like I'm a
Yeah.
single mom, I'm alone, nobody's ever going to understand me. And it just, those labels become heavy. They interrupt our connection with ourselves for sure and how we function in the day to day. They interrupt our connection with other people and ultimately with God, because it's like, well, there's something wrong with me. And it's always just sitting there. And so my call to live beyond your label is not to pretend it doesn't exist. It's not to diminish the label, but it's to take a step back and examine it and see how much that label impacts your functioning. And if it's helping you get the support you need, awesome. There are a lot of people that just want their meds and they feel fine on their meds, and great. But if you're on your meds, you're still struggling, or if you're getting your solutions, your treatments, your therapy, whatever it is, and you still feel like something is missing, I want to offer some other tools that can maybe help you take a few more steps in the right direction, because it can feel so isolating when you've got this diagnosis. And that goes for any diagnosis. I mean, 50% of people are going to be diagnosed with something, whether that's an autoimmune disease. We see that increasing right now. Whether it's type 2 diabetes, that's increasing right now. You name it. We've got all sorts of things rising. And so to know that there are other ways to support your body, your brain, without just well, this is what it is, good luck, I think that can give a lot of people hope.
I agree with you 100%. I mean, having that kind of tangible, like, oh, there's possibly a way to improve this. There's possibly a way to reverse this. I don't have to be defined
Yes.
by this forever, I think is so key. And I want to talk about some practical things
Yep.
that go along with that in just a minute. But I want to revisit when you were saying like it can be so isolating and it can be so like shameful or like, oh, am I the only one? And say that that is true. And I know some people still feel that way, but I almost feel like as a culture, we're going the other direction.
So yes.
So now we've got almost a badge of honor.
Hmm.
Have you ever heard people call other people normies with a great deal of
Oh
disdain? Have you
yeah.
heard this
And
term?
I've been told that I med shame people
Oh,
because I have been medication free for, and this is controversial. And again, this is my disclaimer. I never recommend anybody get off of their medication without the support of a prescribing physician and a team, right? Like that's not something I recommend, but I've
yeah.
been symptom free for as long as I've been married, which is, I always have to count 16 years, and then medication free for over 11 years. And they said that wasn't possible. That's considered an anomaly. So I would say, just on a diagnostic criteria level, I don't meet the criteria for any of my diagnoses right now. That's controversial to talk about because
Mm,
we don't hear those stories. Those are the stories we don't hear. We hear the struggle. We hear this is who I am, and you're just going to have to accept me for who I am, right? We don't hear that. But what if there are other things that can help me feel better? And that's what I had to
mm.
find. So yeah, I think it gets tricky to peel it away and talk about it.
Well, and undergirding that is a cultural phenomenon of speaking truth and making correction being a form of violence and a
Yeah.
form of
Yep.
assault. Like, and when you start redefining terms from being something that you're trying to help someone out of something that you would hope they probably wouldn't want to stay stuck in. I mean,
Yeah.
my dad is bipolar. He doesn't want to be bipolar.
Yeah.
Um, and it's been interesting, like you're saying, the med free part. I wish that were true for him, but I also have watched my mom replace many of his medications with more holistic options through massive amounts of research
Mm-hmm.
and reading and due diligence so that he is on better options that are not
Yeah.
as side effect riddled
Oh, yeah. Because
because
it's
she was
awful.
so devoted and that he's got so many supplements in his regimen and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And I think these are things that people are would kind of be like, ugh, quackery or whatever. Like this is the list
Yeah.
of things. So
But medications deplete us of nutrients that we need to make our neurotransmitters, right? So
yeah,
I think it's not an either or. It's not you take the meds or you don't. Definitely not that. I think it's a both and. So there are, yes, lots of people that are always going to need to be on medication, most likely. And going off would be dangerous for themselves and for the other people around them. But if we can add in other tools. And so that's what my book is hopefully like a set of tools. It's a toolkit for wherever you are to meet you exactly there. Because I've been, gosh, I feel like I've lived 9 lives sometimes with all these diagnoses and then with the pregnancy and then being a single mom. And then, I want to meet people where they are because every season is different. Different seasons call for different solutions.
absolutely. And I love that perspective that you recognize that maybe there is kind of this cultural swing toward taking pride in something. And what I hear you saying, I think, and I want to speak for you, is like, no, I mean, this shouldn't be a point of pride, but it also shouldn't be a point of like hiding and shame. It
Right.
should be an impetus for how can I address this in a way that serves me and my family best?
Totally. What I struggle with doesn't define me, right? Like that's
Right,
not, and that's the whole
right.
point, right? That doesn't have to be my identity because my identity is in Christ, ultimately.
Yes,
That's the
absolutely.
premium, and it has to be. And if that's true, and if we have the mind of Christ, then we also have access to other resources and tools too. And I do think God brings us to the right things at the right time. And that was true for me. And I didn't need, like my book, sometimes I'll say, oh, this is the book I wish I had 25 years ago. Well, I don't think I would have gotten it 25 years ago. Honestly, I would have, it would have been too much for me because I was so stuck and I couldn't see out. And so maybe one chapter would have been for me, but not the whole thing.
Right. Yeah. And I do think that there are so many things that I know now and that make sense to me now from a holistic nutrition or health perspective that I would have really rolled my eyes at 10 years ago. I'd have been like, oh my
Oh, for
word,
sure.
these people are taking this so far. Like, this is too
Yep.
much, kind of thing. And now I'm
Mhm.
like, oh no, that actually makes sense.
Yeah.
And people are like, what are your examples, Abby? We'll maybe get into those in a little bit. So talk to me about some of the baby steps you started taking, because I do think that one of the biggest reasons why people don't seek health beyond a prescription is because you have a medical professional standing in front of you saying, this is what you need. I'm going to write you a script. You have to go pick it up. This is how many times a day you can take it, and it's going to help you. And
Yep.
that is so, if not easy, it's so straightforward
Mm.
that when the alternative is, well, let's tweak this. Well, let's try that. Well, let's
Hmm.
scotch this around a little bit. People are completely overwhelmed, especially if they're starting from a really frustrating place or overwhelmed place of like just having gotten a new label and don't know where to go.
And that's the flip side now too with the internet, right? Is that we have too many options
Mm-hmm.
sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
So how did you get started?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned baby steps, and baby steps is a good word for it. I mean, I think basic routine things that we forget about, like, oh, I don't know, honoring my circadian rhythm and going to sleep at a certain time every night, waking up. And that did, I had my first baby was a really good sleeper. I thought it was me. It wasn't me because my others were not good sleepers. And so that helped. I mean, just following her schedule helped me to set up a schedule. And that was the first thing. The other thing was just having a regular daily routine and making sure that I included, eventually I started including movement. I was like, I've never thought of myself as a runner, but I want to be a runner. I feel like I just want to be one of those people that can go out and do a half marathon. There was something so soothing for me, and I'm slow. I am the slowest runner in the world, but I loved the back and forth motion, it's bilateral stimulation, which is really helpful for people because it's regulating both sides of the body, both sides of the brain, right? And so that was kind of the first thing, is getting into running and adjusting my nutrition. Now at the time I was probably just cutting calories. This was, over 15 years ago, but I decreased some of the ultra processed foods that, honestly, I mean, I was such a junk food lover. And I say that because I want people to know that even though I talk about nutrition now and I have a chapter on nutrition, I have a whole section on, restoring a relationship with food. I love, to this day, if I could eat donuts all day long and feel good, I would, because I love them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the way that I eat now, it's not because, I have like this restrictive perspective. It's really because I want to feel good. I want my brain to feel good, but I would eat sugary things, carby things, all the ultra processed things, because it gave me a hit of dopamine, gave me
Yeah.
a hit of serotonin. It gave me that thing that I was lacking for a little bit. Of course, then I would drop off really quickly. And so figuring out that maybe that wasn't working for me and adjusting my nutrition a little bit, just little by little, was really helpful. And then honestly, marrying somebody who, my sweet husband, he is a therapist, but he had no frame of reference for mental illness or anything. And he's like, you're fine.
Oh.
There's something, and it's so funny because I lived with the weight of my label. I thought I viewed everything through that lens. Like,
Oh.
are my emotions, is it normal to have emotions? Or does this mean that I have to get on a higher dose of my medication? So it
Mm.
was hard for me to understand what's a normal person, like truly, how does a normal person respond to stress and things? And what is me and my illness? And so even marrying him and having him like, hey, no, like you can cry it's okay to cry. It doesn't mean you're depressed, or it's okay to like get really excited about something. It doesn't mean you're manic. It was
Mm.
helpful to start filtering things through his lens, because I couldn't do that for my parents. My parents only saw me, love my parents, they're wonderful people, but they only saw me as unstable, truly, because I had put them through so much
Mm.
throughout my teens and early adulthood because I wasn't stable. So they weren't a good barometer for me. So it was really helpful and that's where it's like even rewriting for myself, what does normal, air quotes, look like? And that was helpful to see through my husband's lens. Of course, now he knows a lot more about mental health issues and things, but he would even say, no, he's like, I've never seen you manic. I've never seen you depressed. I mean, I've struggled with bouts of, when it gets dark in the winter and it's cold outside, I don't like that. I feel a little sluggish. I feel a little like lower motivation, but it's nothing compared to what I used to struggle with. And so just even going, oh, wait a minute, I can just live just a day-to-day life with some of these habits in place, with the sleep and the nutrition and the movement. That was helpful, but it took, I mean, years and years to kind of instill some of these habits. And then discovering gut health, which I talk about a lot in my book, which we could talk about that all day long. The gut microbiome and the gut brain connection was really helpful for me for restoring support and figuring out that, oh, there are options to go alongside my medication, like B vitamins, super helpful to create our neurotransmitters. Like we are not going to make serotonin or dopamine without B vitamins. We are not going to make serotonin or dopamine without a good amount of protein. Protein's totally having a moment right now for good reason, but we need those amino acids and protein to help make our neurotransmitters. Things like that I didn't know. Taking probiotics. I was on antibiotics constantly throughout my early childhood, early adulthood. My gut was wiped out. Well, our probiotics, our gut bacteria, synthesize our neurotransmitters. So we need to make them from nutrients, but they need to be synthesized by a really healthy microbiome, which is that ecosystem of bacteria in our gut. And so that was key for me to restoring gut function and brain function and that whole connection there. And so, yes, it was just little by little, baby steps. It really has to be, we want a magic fix. I would love a magic fix for anything. Just give me a magic fix. But it had to be a kind of a reframing of my thoughts first on how I viewed myself and my body. And then also, what can I do sustainably for right now just to help support myself instead of how can I punish myself with, beat myself up constantly with, restricting food and going on these crash diets, which I would always do because my medication made me gain weight. So that's yes, again, short form as much as I possibly can.
No, that's great. I know that there are people, as much as this has become something that I've been really interested in and read a lot about and learned a lot more about in the last 5 to 6 years. I do know there are people that are starting from some pretty basic places of information and they don't necessarily even know exactly what you mean by circadian rhythm. Can you back way up and say
yes,
how God designed our bodies to work with that?
Yes, we are designed, as women, we're designed with an extra rhythm, which we could talk about, but the circadian rhythm is just a sleep-wake cycle. That's the best way I could put it. When it's nighttime, we're supposed to sleep and rest, and there's a lot of processes that happen even internally in our body and brain during the night. And when it's daytime, we are working, we're active, we're doing all of the things that we're supposed to do when we're awake, right? But when you have something like bipolar disorder, there are some people that consider it a circadian rhythm disorder because all of a sudden you will have this burst of energy at night and stay up and stay up and stay up.
Yeah.
And it perpetuates this mania, hypomania state. And then you can sleep all day long throughout the day because of, especially during a depressive episode. And it just flip-flops that circadian rhythm and causes issues. So that is a rhythm that we were made with. For females, we were also made with the infradian rhythm, which is the phases of our menstrual cycle, which is menstrual, follicular, ovulatory, and luteal. And when you honor that infradian rhythm, a lot of times even certain hormone issues that we have, they can start working better. But we just plow through life as if none of our design matters. We just go because that's what we know to do, because nobody teaches us how to honor our circadian rhythm, or nobody teaches us how to honor infradian rhythm. And it can really make a difference with how our body functions when we work in that design that we were created with.
Absolutely. Break the infradian rhythm down for us in terms of what you can expect. You did the order of it, but basic time periods, what's associated with them, maybe where your hormones are rising and falling, so that just like a teeny tiny soundbite version of it where people can be like, oh, now I can go find some more about that.
Yeah. I love talking about this, especially when it comes to food and exercise. It can get tricky with food, but with exercises can be really helpful. So the menstrual phase is where we bleed, right? And that's when all of our hormones are kind of dropping down to the lowest point because we're shedding the uterine lining if there's no pregnancy. And so that's the menstrual phase. But right after that, we start to get a little climb of testosterone. And that's when the end of the menstrual phase, what I think is really interesting is because I know you're a strength training person, from a workout perspective, that little tiny boost of testosterone we get at the end of our menstrual phase means we can start lifting a little heavier. And sometimes we feel that, right? Like right when the bleeding part starts to go down, we feel that rush of, ooh, I can push myself harder today. And that's a great feeling. So we get a little rise of testosterone, and that that leads into the follicular phase, where then we're going to have a little bit more energy. We start feeling maybe a little bit more social. We'll kind of just come out of the menstrual phase is more that fog that I need to sleep a little bit more. I need to hunker down. It's like the hibernation phase. So follicular things are starting to rise. We're coming out of that. And then with ovulation, that's when estrogen really peaks. So for some women, that's where they feel certain imbalances during that phase because estrogen can peak a little bit too much. And that is a thing for some women, but for most women, that ovulation phase is going to feel pretty good. Skin clears up usually. We seem happier. There's some really interesting studies about how we look, quote, prettier when we're ovulating just for reproductive reasons. Right?
That's so interesting.
Isn't that so weird?
It is so weird.
Libido will spike a little bit during that phase. We notice that a lot. And then right after that is the luteal phase. So for most women, this is that PMS phase. It's like 10 to 14 days, depending on how old you are. I have noticed as I get more into my 40s that luteal phase seems to drag out longer and longer, and it gets a little bit more difficult. We feel more puffy, inflamed, because progesterone is supposed to continue to rise, but it can start to really drop as we're in that perimenopause phase. And that can cause greater imbalances with estrogen. But as things are dropping those last like 5 days before we start our period, we want to make sure that our estrogen, all of our hormones need to be detoxified and metabolized. And so we want to make sure that we're supporting our body with good detox support. We should be, I'm going to say pooping because I talk about it all the time, but we should be pooping regularly because that helps to clear out excess estrogen. We want to be sweating. We want to be moving our bodies, and we want to be supporting our bodies with really good fiber foods, cruciferous vegetables, which are like broccoli, kale, cauliflower, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, things like that. And then that leads back again into the menstrual phase where we kind of hunker down for a little bit. And if you feel great in your menstrual phase and you want to push through, that's great. But sometimes even just the smallest change in adjusting can make a really big difference in how our body picks up on any kind of stress, because our body wants to, and I say this, the design of our body is to protect us against stressors, right? Like this is all part of a design. Evolutionary biologists would say that it's all part of adaptation. I would say it's all part of design so we can live our purpose.
Amen.
And that's what I really try to break down a lot in my book, is that this is on purpose so that we can live the lives that God has intended for us to live. And so our bodies can throw things off if they feel too threatened by external stress, by physiological internal stress, if there are imbalances inside our body. And that's when things get to go haywire. That's when the rhythms, circadian, infradian, all of that get disrupted.
That's so good. Thank you for breaking that down, because I know a lot of women, this is just not something that was talked about 20 years ago, and certainly not before that. Not before that. And so I probably didn't know all the phases of my cycle until like 5 years ago. Yeah. I will say that typically I'm someone that doesn't still pay a ton of attention unless it's just slapping me in the face. And I'm like, okay, slow down.
I'm guilty of that as
listen.
Well. Yeah.
But I think most of the time it's because I just had blood work done and was happy to find out that at almost 43 years old that my hormones are generally balanced. And I had 2 miscarriages last year, so I didn't know for sure how they would be, but I've been doing a lot of supplementation, a lot of working on it. And it was really exciting to see that was really helping. And so I think in general that people, because I saw this whole thread, this is kind of a side quest, but I saw this whole thread the other day where it was essentially painting the female experience as one of 50% torture because of that luteal phase, where you essentially spend 10 to 14 days, or if you're perimenopausal, maybe longer, miserable and completely out of control of anything. You're not responsible for your actions. You're not responsible for your emotions. You're not responsible for your behavior or the way you treat other people or your performance at work or your service to your family. And I was like, it wasn't coming from a Christian perspective. So it's not like I expected them to come at it from a biblical perspective of like, love God, love people, serve, pour yourself out for others. Obviously not. But it was a very self-pitying, negatively focused, like, we are cursed. This is the worst.
Right.
And I have not found that to be personally true. But then when I was asking questions on my social media, a lot of people were with me that it was like, oh yeah, sometimes in the month are harder than others, but it's not terrible. But some people were like, listen, you have no clue, because I deal with PMDD and I am a crazy person and I have to like speak the blood of Jesus over myself all day, every day, so I don't kill everybody. And I have suicidal ideations. And
Yeah.
so that was a huge revelation to me that for some people, it's not a curse on all of, femaledom, but there's a really genuine struggle there. Would you say in most cases, in your opinion, that that's because there's some imbalance happening?
Oh, absolutely. There's usually, and it's so, what's really interesting is that PMDD does go hand in hand with things like ADHD and autism. It goes hand in hand with other, isn't that interesting? I don't know if it's because the ADHD brain, especially, I know about that one a little bit more. It can be a little bit more of a stressed out brain because you're processing information all at once, all the time. And that creates stressors. And so if we think about God designed our bodies with an internal stress response system called the HPA axis. And it starts with the brain, hypothalamus, pituitary, then leads down to the adrenals. So it's hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. And
That's a
that is our
mouthful.
internal stressor alert system.
Okay.
And if you have something like a neurobiological difference, because there are differences in that type of a brain, or even if you have some kind of like a head injury trauma or an emotional trauma, the brain processes information differently and it's just hypervigilant. So let's call it that. Let's call it a hypervigilant stress response.
Okay.
Well, that hits the hypothalamus differently. That hits pituitary glands, and it's all at once, real time. Your body, your adrenal glands are just looking for a threat to support you with cortisol and to support you with whatever information they're going to send to your reproductive organs. Because down the line from that HPA axis are the thyroid and your reproductive hormones. And so all of your body is in cahoots with what's going on at the brain to respond to a threat. And of course, this is purposeful and intentional, but when those threats are ongoing, it can create more imbalances. And so for a lot of people, the question is, okay, so it's like a chicken or egg thing, right? Like, are the imbalances the result of the body just being hyper alert to stress? And do we need to support the stress response? Or is it the imbalances that need to be addressed first in order to calm down the stress response? Because they're working both ways. So, I mean, I think PMDD, it is a very real struggle. It's interesting that it happens more with certain types of brains, which is so interesting to me, certain types of people. And sometimes it's genetic too. And we have the way that we clear out estrogen can have different genetic SNPs. Like if you're familiar with MTHFR, that's the most famous genetic SNP. But there's one called COMT that clears out excess estrogen, and that can increase anxiety if estrogen isn't being detoxified or methylated well. And you can see things like that, like on a Dutch test, which I like to look at. You can tell how you're methylating. Mine comes in next week, so I'll be interested to hear my own results for the Dutch test, see what I'm doing. But I think it's different people. I mean, depending on their life experiences, physiological imbalances, toxin exposure is a big one to talk about. That impacts, but we've got all sorts of input coming in at all times. And the question is does your body feel safe to function optimally? Or does it feel like there's a threat, whether that's an internal threat or some kind of brain level threat that you're perceiving a threat, even though there's not a threat? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And so many of these women, yes, I did get some responses that were really like upset that I was even asking the question, which was a genuine question. Like, is this
Yeah,
how you feel? Is this your experience as a
right.
woman? Like that half of your month, every single month is torture. Said, I have not personally found this to be true. I think that the emotions are real and like our feelings are real and that our physical responses are real. But like, is this your experience? Most
Mhm.
people said no, but some people said yes and kind of like just be real happy that you don't experience this, which I am. I do
Yeah,
understand that that
yeah,
would be, my word, that would be a true struggle and
yeah.
suffering. Just knowing that it's coming even would be like,
Mhm.
like I'm dreading this.
Yeah.
So I recognize that, but then some people were saying that because they know it's coming, they are able to like preach truth to themselves essentially that this
Yes.
is not what I think it is. My husband is
Yes.
not out to get me. Um, I really am not, my family would not be better without me. I will not wake up and think this tomorrow, So
Yes.
sometimes, and they were even saying things like, I know to support my hormones. I know to get more
Mhm.
sleep. I know to
Absolutely.
take, get some more water with electrolytes or to take a
Mhm.
nap or to do something. So I was really happy to see a lot of proactive people.
Yeah.
If you do feel, and I think that what you were describing, especially about the brains that are more prone to it, is going to be a light bulb. I mean, you saw my face. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
That's such an interesting correlation. But hopefully, and I think it will be, that everything you just said is probably turning on some light bulbs for people, that they're like,
Yeah.
because interestingly enough, if you start going down this rabbit hole of holistic health, you start kind of, if you're like me, which I think you are much more, I mean, this is your profession and it's not mine. And I think you are a research junkie. I'm like taking the cream off the top as much as I can because I can't do the deep dives. I don't have the time and it's not my profession and it's like, not my area of expertise. But it's the things that keep pinging over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I've seen that so many times. Let's look at that a little more closely. And then they start seeming normal to me. And then you
Mm-hmm.
mention them. And always there's this large group of people that are like, the what now? Like,
Yeah.
I didn't know our gut had anything to do with her brain. Like,
Right.
wait. What is, and I tend to do this because I'm a very linear thinker. I want point A and point B to connect,
Mm-hmm.
obviously. And it
Mm-hmm.
is not immediately obvious from like an external looking at a person what your brain would
Yep.
have to do with what goes in your gut, right?
Right. Oh, yeah.
So talk a little bit more about that and then kind of maybe go down the nutrition path,
Sure.
where you're not obviously telling us exactly what we have to eat every day to
Right.
feel wonderful or to manage our symptoms or to live beyond our label,
Mm-hmm.
but like some good principles.
Yeah. I mean, so just basics of the gut brain axis, I would say, is that we know that the gut and the brain are connected via something called the vagus nerve. And vagus is spelled Vagus. But my little joke that I like, that I overplay, that I'm going to throw in, is that what happens in the vagus nerve doesn't stay in the vagus nerve, because that vagus nerve runs from the base of your skull all the way down to your gut. And it really touches on just about every organ in between. And what's fascinating about the vagus nerve is it's supposed to be kind of like the brakes on your stress alert system. So when we get stressed out, right, so that vagus nerve is going to signal to our gut and tell our gut, ooh, better go empty out the contents of whatever's going on. So this is where we have like IBS diarrhea, because there's a stressor. Well, there's no use, if we think about this like ancestrally speaking, there's no use running from a tiger, or there's no use having a snack when you're running from a tiger. Digestion's not going to work, right? So if your body picks up on, you're running from a tiger, you're running from a stressor, whether that's like a bunch of emails you have to respond to, because that's my stressor.
Yeah, same girl, same.
Admin stuff is so hard for me. And so like that's an internal alert for me. Well, that tells my vagus nerve to tell my gut to halt digestion, right? So the vagus nerve is kind of the brakes system for stress. It's supposed to kind of slow things down on purpose, and we can strengthen our vagus nerve. Our vagus nerve can almost become like unresponsive. We can have problems with it, but ultimately it is the signaling highway that goes from brain to gut and gut to brain. Here's what gets really fascinating that I didn't know, that I think probably a lot of people are not told. We know that our gut communicates to our brain communicates to our gut because we get butterflies in our stomach when we're nervous, right? Things like that. Or we know, like if I'm about to go, on stage to perform in a play. I used to do theater way back in the day. I felt like I had to pee like immediately, right? Like
I
those
sweat.
feelings.
I sweat even if I'm not nervous, like
Totally.
with most, I just speak so much now that I'm never nervous. I sweat while I podcast. Like I'm not like, sweating buckets or
Totally.
anything right now, but it's like my body's like, we're cooling you down. You don't seem too stressed out, but like this is different than just talking to your husband or your kids. So we're going to
Totally.
work on you here. And I'm like, could we not? But
not right now. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's how our brain communicates with our gut. But what's so fascinating that they found in the research is that our gut, for every like 2 signals our brain is sending to our gut is sending 8 back. So 80% of the communication with gut and brain is actually going from your gut to your brain. So you could even like from that take away that your gut is talking to your brain more than your brain is talking to your gut. And so when you factor that in, it's like, whoa, then what's going on in my gut is a big deal. And it is a big
Yeah.
deal. So we have an ecosystem of bacteria in our gut. We have the lining. And by gut, let me break this down to see, because I had a really good editor who was like, let's connect the dots for people. Because
Yeah.
I'll go,
100%. Yep.
big picture. I can't break it down into details. So I'm like, oh, but let me tell you all the big picture things, right? But what I mean by gut is we're talking about the entire digestive tract that's like 20 to 30 feet long. Okay. It's a tube. Think about a big tube, or again, corridor of exchange systems, whatever it is. And that gut, so inside we have bacteria that needs to be in balance, but on the outside we have a gut lining, a gut barrier that needs to be protected. And everybody, for the most part, has probably heard of leaky gut before, or enhanced intestinal permeability. That's kind of like the nicer phrasing. Leaky gut just sounds gross. But our gut, due to stress, due to toxins, due to certain foods, due to whatever, our gut can become a little bit leakier, where that there's more permeability in that gut lining. So things that are supposed to be inside the gut get on the outside where they're not supposed to be. So things like undigested food particles that are supposed to stay inside the gut to be excreted will get out into the outside of the gut lining, which is where our immune cells are. And then our immune cells go on the attack. That's where people develop food sensitivities, or even things like autoimmune disease. One of the biggest triggers is leaky gut. There's a lot of other triggers for autoimmune disease, but that's a big one. And so our gut really matters. So when there are issues in the gut, that communication to the brain is not working as well. And over 90% of our serotonin, which is our, our happy neurotransmitter, serotonin does a lot more than improve our mood, but that's a big part of it. Over 90% of it is synthesized in our gut. That's huge. So very little is made in our brain. We need a healthy gut to make our neurotransmitters and to send those signals back up to the vagus nerve that, hey, I'm fine. And if you want to talk about PMDD, that's one of the biggest issues with PMDD is low serotonin, low GABA. It can be gut issues that are causing that, and imbalances. If there's an imbalanced gut microbiome, we're not getting those signals that we're safe in the luteal phase. We also, I'll say one last thing, because I get so excited talking about
this. I love this. Keep going. This is great.
We also have a microbiome. So the microbiome of our gut is a collection of bacteria. It's that ecosystem, right? We have something called the estrobolome, which breaks down and synthesizes excess estrogen. So that plays a huge role in PMDD as well, and plays a huge role in perimenopause, which is like a whole other label right now. I will say that we're over-identifying
very, very into perimenopause these days as a culture.
And it's to the point where I'm like, okay, am I just speaking this into existence? I've got to stop blaming everything. I mean, there are some things, sure, they're hormonal, but at some point it's like, maybe this is just me, and move on with my life, right? Like, let me just figure out my systems.
Yes, please. Myself. Yes, please.
But our ecosystem of bacteria does change in perimenopause, because estrogen is constantly, instead of just rising and dropping like it's supposed to, in perimenopause, estrogen does like a bunch of zigzags all throughout.
Is this why we're bloated all the time, Erin?
Yes,
is this
absolutely.
it? Because never in my life have I ever experienced this before, and I just want to punch the wall. Like, come on.
Yeah. So I went through a phase where I was completely like, I'd have to wear 2 different sizes of clothes throughout the month, because I couldn't figure out my ecosystem was changing every month. Like, it was the weirdest thing. And I've since kind of, sometimes it's hard to take your own advice when you do this. Since I've really dug in and I've stuck down to what I know to be true. But at first I'm like, what's happening? I don't understand.
Yeah.
It's frustrating.
It is not fun. No, especially, I think that while my hope is not in my activity or my nutrition or anything, it's very easy to start to pride yourself on like, well, but I'm doing everything right. I do all the right things. And then, well, I mean, welcome to the fact that you don't get to like preserve everything perfectly your entire life. That's not how that works. But we do want to be faithful to make good choices that actually allow us to function better, both for our own sake, because we don't want to feel like junk all of the time, but also because we are much less likely to be effective in any area of our lives. And we are much more likely to be really ineffective and unkind and kind of offloading of our responsibilities and our calling and our purpose, like you call it, when we just feel terrible. I'm recording this with you the day after I found out I have pulmonary embolisms in my lungs, which if you don't follow me on social media, and I don't talk about this before then, which I'm like thinking about the order of when this is coming out. Sorry, surprise. I almost died. I'm kidding. I don't think I actually almost did die. I think that I could have had a really bad episode and that the Lord was really gracious to help me find all the things in time and get blood thinners in my system in time for it to not turn into a really bad episode. But there was definitely a moment when there were a lot of doctors and nurses in the room and they were calling codes and they were like, those are for you. And they were, wheelchairing me to the ER. And I was like,
Gosh,
what is going on? So this morning I did not feel my best and brightest and I was not my nicest. And I had to realize, like, these are very real physical limitations. Like, it feels like your head is a helium balloon.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't slept very much in the last 3 days.
Yep.
And you haven't eaten yet. And some of those you have control over and some of those you don't. And you're going to have to do the best you can in Christ's strength with what you have, because you can't just keep snapping at your kids, I think those moments where we're a little honest about, like, some of this is not my fault, but I'm still not responding well.
Yep.
Are those good impetus for change, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are people that are struggling with that all the time, that are in a
Yeah.
chronic state of,
Yeah.
whether it's, the chronic pain or the chronic symptoms. And I like to think that they should be natural alerts that we're given. If there's something not right with our body, our body is sending us signals, they should be natural alerts to maybe shift what we're doing, right? But so often we get overwhelmed with, but what does that mean? How do I shift? And so it can be, and that is where the overwhelm sets in for a lot of people who are struggling with this on an ongoing basis.
So just, if you had someone that was like, just tell me the top 3 things to take one step in, what would you tell them?
Gosh, I would say my number one thing, I really do think a lot comes down to, and I, again, don't want to food shame anybody, because convenience.
Oh, Erin, just go. We do not have to give every one of these caveats. Tell us what we need to know. You don't have to do it. I promise.
Okay.
No food shaming here.
Yeah. The ultra processed foods that have been designed to be hyper palatable, to hijack our neurotransmitters. They're nutrient deficient. They're not giving us what we need, but they're making us feel like we need them.
Yes.
And we're being duped. I don't want to be duped. So it's like, I'm a preacher's kid, so I have an inner rebel, right? Like, there's an inner rebel in me that I don't want to do what some company is designing this food to make me do. Like, that makes me mad.
Like, addict you to it. Yes, exactly.
Totally. It really bothers me. And there's a big debate about that. Oh, food can't be addictive. Oh, it absolutely can be. Give me something with MSG and my brain's going to light up like a light bulb and I'm going to want more. It's like there's some weird switch in my brain that's been flipped. I do not like that feeling. I don't like feeling like I'm out of control. Maybe that's my own issue I can work on somewhere else, but I don't like that feeling.
I don't think anyone should like feeling out of control, right, especially on something like that. I don't mean like God's in control. I mean like you are incapable of doing what you know you should do. That's not a good feeling.
And these are mood altering substances. So, I mean, we know now, I mean, there's plenty, anybody can go down this rabbit hole if they want to. The tobacco companies, when they weren't allowed to advertise anymore about cigarettes and how great they are, they use their tactics to advertise for food and the big food companies to get us to be hooked on them. And so the biggest thing is these ultra processed foods are really not bringing you life as much as they might be helping you cope with stress in the short term. I mean, I'd love nothing more, like I said, to have a good donut and just sit and just chill and enjoy my donut. But it's not, I'm going to feel foggy afterwards. I'm going to have some blood sugar swings and drops. And so managing your blood sugar is a great way to support your nervous system, to support your cortisol response. That's another word that's getting a whole lot of too much coverage on social media, is the whole cortisol conversation. We need cortisol. Cortisol is a great thing. It's anti-inflammatory. Too much is not great. Too little is not great. It's an issue. But we can support our cortisol, our stress hormones, by making sure we get enough nutrients from food, making sure that our blood sugar is balanced, making sure we're getting enough protein, and getting off of those things that are not going to help us serve our purpose. They just won't. The mood altering substances that are in food these days, it's not working for anybody. It's not helping. So I would say do what you can to minimize those and add in as many whole foods as you can. That would be huge. The other thing is to stop viewing exercise as a way to punish or perfect your body or make your body an idol, because we do that. I mean, think about all of The gyms are covered in mirrors. We are worshiping the idols of self every time. Now, I mean, I do it to look at my form, right? Like I want to make sure I can do things the right way and not injure myself. That's important. But we get into this perfection mode. And so many of us who I've struggled with body image issues my whole life, it was not necessarily that I wanted to be in a smaller body. It's like it was a constant quest to change the shape of my body. Well, the shape of my body is something I'm born with. Like that's just the body I have is the body I have. It's like, that's why I love you bet your stretch marks. It's like, there's just marks of aging that happen. Things shift, muscle tone goes away. Things just move around in different places. It's wonderfully protective. Even our fat cells are protective because after we go through menopause, our adipose tissue is helping us with a little bit of estrogen when we need it because our ovaries aren't doing it anymore. There are so many protections in place with the way that our bodies are shifting as we age. It's super important.
So God designed us to be fluffy grandmas is what you're saying.
How cozy are fluffy grandmas, right? I mean, it's like, yes, we're going to give the better hugs. And there's something to that. Like, I don't want to hug somebody who I'm going to break in half when she's old, right? Like, so there's something to that. But I think viewing exercise as a way to support your brain, to support your body in a partnership instead of a punishment is just different. That's not what it's not what I did in my teens or 20s. It's something I've really had to grow to understand. And there's so many cool processes that happen when we exercise. Myokines, have you gone down the myokines rabbit hole?
I have not. What is this?
Oh, you're going to love this. Oh my gosh. Okay. So myokines are produced by muscle when we exercise, when we do resistance training, strength training, whatever it is. They're proteins produced by our muscles that cross the blood-brain barrier, that when researchers first discovered them, they called them hope molecules because of such a marked effect on mental health, preventing cognitive decline, decreasing anxiety, decreasing depressive symptoms. Isn't that amazing? Like God designed our bodies to move, to feel better. We weren't designed to just sit here and podcast all day. Although, I mean, I like doing that too. But like, movement is our way to really show that partnership to our body, because our body is our only vessel that we've been given to show God's love, to demonstrate his love to the world. Like that's it, right?
That's great. Yeah,
through our hugs,
I love that.
Through our smiles, through our, and I would say, depending on in conflict sometimes, right? Like that's when we show our real self. Like I'm thinking about like with my husband, there are certain looks I'll give him that he's like, that's invalidating, right? And so we can choose to show our love through our bodies or not. And I think we have this awesome opportunity to do that. And when we feel better, we do serve better. Like to your point earlier, like I think that's huge. And so by increasing the nutrients that support our bodies, by increasing the movement in a way, and that's going to look different for everybody. Again, there's no one size fits all. I don't have the magic formula. That's individual. But it is partially a recipe. I would also say this is where the verse that I've been hooked on lately, you even kind of referenced it, Hebrews 4:12, that God's word is alive and active and able to pierce through. I can't believe it even talks about this. The joints and the marrow and the soul and the spirit. Like what? That's mind, body, spirit right there.
Yeah,
but there is something supernatural about feasting on God's word and making that our primary nutrition, because it does impact our bodies. It does impact our brain. It does impact our emotional well-being just as magically as the myokines that are released from our muscles, right?
That is so interesting. I had not heard the name for that. I did know that like you benefit greatly, that your mood is greatly improved. I think in You Bet Your Stretch Marks, I have this line where I often say, I don't have to exercise to be a nice mom, but I am a much nicer mom when I do exercise.
Yes.
Like, in other words, my hope is not an exercise, but I recognize it as a very useful tool that actually has benefited not just me, because I think there is a narrative. You are going to find me the first person to advocate for prioritizing family, for prioritizing the Lord, for foregoing things when the world would tell you deserve them, but they're really not serving you, or your circumstances just not allowing it. And that's okay. You know, like this idea that if you cannot have a girls' night out, your wine, your Oreos, your exercise, your like pick your kind of drug of choice that you need to be able to be a decent human being to your family, then your hope is somewhere other than in Christ. But then to swing the other direction and say it is selfish or totally just, yeah, that it's self-focused to do
Right.
something that actually ends up benefiting your family because you function better, you live
Yes.
longer, you have better bone density, you're stronger to lift them up. I'm always talking about things that you can do that
Mhm.
increase functional strength. So
Yeah.
you may not have pretty muscles as a result of them, but you can carry in a whole lot of groceries or a whole lot of children or
So
keep
important.
from falling or like
Yep.
do these quick lunging motions to grab a kid without doing something bad to
Mhm.
yourself, you know? Um, those are all ways to glorify God, believe it or not.
It absolutely. Yes, I agree.
And it's
Yeah.
when once we have that perspective shift, I think it also makes us as women more likely to find ways to include it rather than excuses not to. Um,
Mhm.
and I will get people mad at me for using the word excuse, but or to find reasons why you couldn't possibly. Instead to say like or to find like things where you're like, if it doesn't look like this, then it doesn't count.
Uh-huh.
But it does.
That's a trap. That's a thinking trap too. It's another way
Like
we self-sabotage. Yeah.
yes, yes.
To
So
get out of
like
it.
if I cannot spend 20 minutes doing Pilates, then I'm not going to do anything,
Right.
as opposed to I am going to, as my child is doing math today, I'm going to lunge back and forth through the kitchen. I'm going
Mhm.
to do some
Mhm.
push-ups and then, some squats. And then I'm going to take a walk after lunch. And then I'm going to take
Yep.
another walk after dinner. And you're benefiting your digestion and your brain and all these
Mhm.
things.
Mhm.
And it didn't look like somebody that went to the gym for an hour, but it was completely a good idea.
And it benefited your mood. And again, that functional fitness, like you're going to be the grandma who maybe you're a little softer and fluffier, but you're going to be getting up and down off the ground a lot easier and
Yeah.
carrying those baby carriers, all those things.
Yeah, that's my mom. My mom is not like a traditional exerciser, but she is not a sit down and be still type of person. And
Mm-hmm.
she is not a delicate person. And so she doesn't really lift a lot of weights or anything, but she's moving constantly. She's
Yeah.
in her garden. She is taking a walk. She's riding a bicycle. She is going up and down the stairs carrying things. She's scrubbing her, kitchen counters aggressively. And so she is at 74. I mean, she literally fell today in my house because there was a very like camouflage box. She's not prone to that or anything, but like her foot caught on it, and I watched her do it on my hard tile floor, and then I watched her get herself back up with no,
That's
broken hip
amazing.
or anything because
Wow.
she has really prioritized supplementation. She had
Mm-hmm.
like figuring it out for herself way before any of this became very popular.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she has prioritized really good nutrition. She has prioritized. The woman walks in with like a giant jar full of lemons with water, like not sliced, but like the lemons are just sitting there in the water. And she's like, the ride's good for it too. So
That's
she's,
funny.
um, so yeah, that's who I want to be. I want to be
Absolutely.
able to actively move and serve my children and their children when I'm old instead of saying like, I just can't because I'm too feeble. Like
Yep.
that's sad.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, this is so good because you were touching on all these things that I wanted to talk about anyway. And then people can just go buy your book and
Yeah.
find out how to live beyond their label. Or even if you don't have like some label, if you're the last person in the world that's left without a label, you can she's got all kinds of really good info that takes the stuff that we highlighted pretty quickly, just 1 hour podcast, and breaks it down even more if you have questions about this. And I'm sure that you do. And you have resources here even beyond you for where to go and find more
Yep.
information. So I love that you are passionate about this, that you are so informed, that you are I know you're constantly educating yourself. I think you described yourself as a research nerd or something like that one
Oh,
time.
for sure. Yes. Yeah. Oh, I'm always looking because there's always new information. And so yeah, I love it. And yeah, I take one-on-one clients as well. I'm in East Texas, but I see people virtually. So I just
Oh,
like
that's
talking
great.
to people. I like helping people and just to help people learn to partner with their bodies, no matter their symptoms. I mean, running tests if we need to, but sometimes we do just need to get a few little things in balance, tweak a few little things, and it makes a huge difference.
And that's such a hopeful perspective because what you said that I loved probably the most of this entire conversation is your label is not your identity.
Mm.
Your identity is in Christ.
Yep.
And we are called to love God, mind, body, soul, spirit. And to do that well, we can't just shut part of that off or all of it off and just try to white knuckle our way through
Yep.
existence. Um, But then also just that you emphasized the fact that God's word goes down into every part of us. And so using that as our foundation and our core is everything. Everything else flows from there. So tell us where we can find you and follow you and your resources and where we can find your book.
Yes, my website is erinbkerry.com, and my handle on most things is Sparking Wholeness. And because it's really just about just one tiny spark that sets somebody into motion on their health journey. That's what it was for me. It's just tiny things along the way. Let's see, I've got the book will be available everywhere. I've got a 7-day free devotional on the Bible app called Reset Your Stress Response with Scripture. That was really fun for me to write. So that's available too for somebody who's like, I just want something right now to get me through the next 7 days.
That's fantastic.
My husband is running an X account for me, and that's been really fun. He's doing a great job. So I'm there too on X.
I'm not even on X.
I was like, I can't do it, but he loves it.
I can't either.
He gets so
that's
much
awesome.
health information there. So he's just like reposting things and posting things. Yeah, it's been fun to watch him do that.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And then you have a podcast, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sparking Wholeness. I didn't even say that. Yes. Sparking Wholeness is my podcast. And I interview, it's mostly, it's health and wellness. It's mental health. I'm interviewing psychiatrists, psychologists, nutritionists, you name it. And it's a lot of
me.
Like the
You've interviewed
stuff.
me.
I did interview you. Yeah. Yes. I know. We need to do another one because it was for The Heart Is Not the Same Thing as Bad, which was such a good one. Because I interview, like authors and things like that too. And people with experience in the world of just living life. I think that that's really important to have too. So, yeah.
Well, thank you, Erin, for sharing your insights with us and for encouraging my listeners that their identity is in Christ and that is where it all flows from. And I appreciate your being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right, you guys, we will see you again next Wednesday. If you enjoy the MS for Mama podcast, I would be so honored if you would subscribe and follow along, maybe share with friends or even leave a review. And if you want more content on motherhood and biblical responses to cultural issues, be sure to follow along on Instagram at m.is.for.mama.